Hey everybody, this is Pat again. It's been a little while since I've done a video, and not too long ago, a guy here by the name of Cory McGrath reached out to me after seeing some of my videos, and he wanted to tell me some great stories about a car that he's soon going to be owning. He actually owns it now, but he hasn't been able to drive it yet. And some stories that I brought up in my earlier videos kind of gave him an idea to give me a call. Cory, can you give a little more background again about how you originally, how your grandpa originally found the car and how you decided that you wanted to get it?
So my grandfather purchased the vehicle in 2011, had it till he passed, unfortunately, last year. He loved the car. He kept it stored in his garage, didn't drive it that much, or maybe not at all, actually. First time I saw a Prowler was years before that, in 1998, and I immediately fell in love with the car. It was a car that someday I definitely wanted to own. Possession of my grandfather's car, even though I don't have it here with me. I will be coming to Western Canada in a little bit, but so when the car had to be taken care of after grandfather passed last year, it was in the dealership for quite a while, which was good. We needed them just to do a basic inspection and doing some maintenance on it. My uncle was originally going to take the car. He ended up having some issues where he decided it wasn't in his best interest to take the car. A very smart decision. But the car was in the dealership, so Mom asked me to help with the car. She was pretty overwhelmed. I mean, when I talked to grandfather several years ago about the car, I asked him if he ever took it for a drive, and he said, no, it's sitting in the garage. Eventually, one of my kids will get it, and they can do what they will with it, whether they keep it, drive it, or sell it. So I called different towing companies to see which one I was happy with that knew what they were doing to actually winch this car up on a flat deck. Mm-hmm. Nobody wanted to drive it. And on top of that, the battery was missing. We don't know where the battery went. Yeah, okay. Grandfather would take the battery out and put it on a trickle charge, similar to what you do with when you put your cat in the bag and you put your trickle charger on the battery. Yeah. So we can only think maybe the battery leaked. I don't know what type of battery, if they're AGM batteries or if they're liquid filled. I can only assume that maybe the battery leaked and grandfather got rid of the battery. But anyway, there was no battery on the premises, so it got towed to the dealership. And one thing I wanted them to do was for sure get the gasoline, the old gas out of the tank, and put fresh fuel in the tank. So once the dealership did that, how they did it was they went through the opening once they pulled the fuel pump out. So they pumped it out through the opening that housed the fuel pump. Once they lifted the fuel pump out, they saw what lay in the tank. And of course, the fuel was very old, had gone bad. Fuel pump also was contaminated, and any metal bits, the relief valve, anything else was rusted up. So the fuel tank was a bit of a mess. So that had to be cleaned out. That posed a problem because, of course, as you full well know, Prowler parts aren't as easy to get as they used to be. So all through this, when grandfather passed and the estate happened, I mean, I love that car and I did really want that car, but it was going to be an inconvenience for my parents. They're back in Newfoundland. I'm out here in Alberta. So my uncle passed on the car. I listed the car on Kijiji, just local back there. The goal was to find someone local to take this car. Even though I really wanted it, I had to put my parents ahead of my wishes. And, it was better if the car was gone. So the house sold incredibly fast, which was a blessing, but also was a hindrance as well, because now that car is sitting in the dealership, the house is sold, the garage along with the house is sold. So now there's nowhere for this car to go. So it was listed. There were views, but no inquiries. Now we put the price up a little higher than it should have been, but again, that was to ensure that we didn't get any tire kickers or people that just wanted to waste time. My parents did not have time to waste, and they were stressed. They did not need somebody just kicking at tires, asking weird questions, and just not interested, just wanted to look, right? Yeah, you understand. Yeah. So the car listed, there was nothing happening, and in the meantime, too, Pat, like I drove my family, my wife and my kid nuts because I just kept talking about this car, how much I want the car, and if things don't work out.
So you're trying to sell this car even though you wanted it yourself.
I'm trying to sell my dream car for my parents' behalf. Absolutely, yeah. So I'm putting them ahead of me.
I don't know how you did that because I guess that's amazing. You want this car, but you feel like you somebody else.
I was torn apart inside. I really was. But to be fair to what was right for my parents, this is how it had to be. So I want the car gone. I want the stress gone for them first and foremost. So yeah, the car stayed listed, and there was views, but no takers. Now, where mom asked me, she kind of put me in charge of the car as far as making arrangements to find a company to tow it, where to take it to, tell the dealership what we need. And then all along the way, the dealership kept in contact with me. So I had an idea of what they were doing, and I knew what they were doing. So I ended up talking to the owner dealer principal. What my plan was to get the dealership to actually purchase the car for my parents. So what I wanted them to do, and I told the dealer principal, I would love for my mother to come in, sit down, hear what you have to say, smile, shake your hand, hand you the keys, and walk out. Mission accomplished, done. The estate's finalized. She can head back home, start to heal, right? Just all the stress, all the work is done.
Right. But now, so you want to turn it over to a dealer, but you knew that a dealer probably wouldn't give you nearly as much as somebody else buying the car.
Right? Yeah, no, and I knew that. Yeah. So I had a plan for that as well. I knew the dealer wants to turn a profit on it if they want the car at all.
Right.
Now I know they have it there. They know there's issues with the fuel system because obviously, the gas, it was there. So they knew what was up with the car. So I knew she was trying to get a price because it would be inheritance to spread amongst her and her brothers and sister, mom and aunt. So I knew what kind of price that she wanted, and I knew what the service invoice was. So when I talked to the dealer principal, I told him, this is what my mom wants for the car. What I'd like to do is for you guys to sit down with her, tell her this is the price you'll give, minus the service invoice plus extra. So kind of show goodwill. And to my mother, that's the price that she wanted.
Right.
But I told the dealer principal, I don't expect you guys to eat anything on this. You guys have been a great help and you've looked after this car. So I will pay the service invoice and the extra. I said, the only part of this deal is my parents never find out about it. So I want mom to know that she got what she wanted for herself and her siblings between what you'll give her a check for or offer her money for minus your service invoice, which, please inflate it to make it even more of an incentive for you. They're still trying to find, now they're onto a fuel filter. So the fuel pump showed up, they put it in. The car actually ran and road tested. But it was logging engine faults for left bank, right bank, running lean, whatever the fault code number is. I've got it written down somewhere. Doesn't matter. I get a call from the service manager saying, so we've had it running, the car starts, the car runs. He himself took it on a road test. And apparently there's a Chrysler procedure for road testing vehicles to check condition. They do varying speeds and stuff like that. They put it through its paces pretty much. So that happened. But he said first it was running sluggish, but then as the fuel worked through, it picked up. But now we've got engine faults running lean. So by trade, I'm a heavy duty technician. I spent several years working at a Detroit diesel authorized service center. Got to know diesel engines anyway, really well. I understand fuel systems. I understand contamination. So what I gathered from him saying it worked its way through on the road test and picked up, the fuel lines never got flushed and the fuel filter wasn't changed. So this is before I knew that there was no fuel filter available for this car. So I was pretty shocked that they knew what was in the tank, but didn't change the fuel filter. That kind of led me to a search to find a fuel filter. I spent hours and hours on the phone and surfing the internet for anything and everything fuel filter related, which led me to the POA. So I figured I tried Chrysler Canada's customer support center, hoping that somebody there, like someone who'd been with the company long term, would talk to me and say, yeah, you know what, this is something that we could do. But it was just banging my head against the wall, even with those. That sounds like
Chrysler,
you're full aware. Yeah.
Unfortunately, Chrysler has kind of abandoned the car, so there's no way you're going to.
They have. There. But I mean, being whether I was with Detroit Diesel, I knew their customer support center, and if it was a legacy, as they call a legacy engine, an engine no longer in production, they had long-term people working there that would still get on the phone and talk to you. You could still get some help from those guys on discontinued engines. So I was hoping for the same out of Chrysler for the Prowler, but not so much.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, the engine is, been used in a lot of the cars. The fuel system, though, I'm not sure how much of that is shared with other cars, though. I mean, the tank itself was entirely unique, obviously, to the Prowler. And I think the fuel pump probably is too, in relation to that, just because.
That I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I had luck finding a fuel pump. So I never got that deep into trying to find one because I kind of locked out with the fuel pump right away.
The fuel filter, but the pump part is one that Tom Mills is one of the POA members that has his own shop in Indiana, and he sells his own version of a replacement fuel pump that I haven't gotten in mine yet. It's one of those things where I don't know if I should get mine just as a security thing, just in case it goes. But
I don't know, man.
Everybody wants to. That's pretty common. Many people want to just go get all these parts and pile them up just so that when something fails, they've got it.
Well,
but you never know.
I think in this case, that car, that's kind of an unfair thing to do because I buy a vehicle. I don't buy a vehicle to sell it. I buy a vehicle to keep long term. Right now, I'm driving a 2009 Honda Accord. My vehicle before that was a 91 Honda Accord. Now, I never bought that one new, but still, that car was almost 20 years old. Or 20 years old when I traded it off on the one I have now. That car I've had since 2011. So the way I look at that car, I'm half life. So I do tend to keep vehicles for a long time. I have luck. I don't have to change fuel pumps. So to go ahead and buy fuel pumps just to hang on to them, I do understand the parts are getting rare. They're getting hard to get.
That's the main reason why.
But to proactively go and get one just to have it just in case, you're kind of maybe hampering somebody else who legitimately has a fuel pump go out.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Now, having said that, though, with the power of the POA, I've learned how powerful that site is for support for that car. So if a POA member were to go and proactively buy a pump and a member were to put it on there, I suspect that member would offer it up as help. Yeah. I hope so.
Yeah,
right? That's the feel I get from the POA.
Yeah, for the most part, you're right. That's the nice thing about it is that you can post things on there saying, well, I have this part, anybody want it? And then obviously there's a lot of times people asking for wanting to buy something. So yeah, it's a great way to connect.
Yeah. So my hunt for the fuel filter, I just had a thought Friday night and I said, I'm having no luck going through OEMs, going through part sources, going through whatever. I'll try to join an enthusiast club and I'll pose a question to members of the enthusiast club. So that led me to joining POA. So Saturday morning, it was on Halloween, actually, October 31st. In the morning, I applied to be a member of the POA. And you could leave a message on the application. So the message was specific for needing help to source a fuel filter. Later that evening, now while I was applying, I see the name Tony Gertz popping up a whole bunch. So I don't know who he is, but obviously he's somebody affiliated with the Prowler. I found out after who he is. Like he was the originating creator of the site and founding member of the POA, right? Yep. So I get a call from Tony himself later the same evening. And my wife says, phone's for you, some Tony guy from Prowler or something. I said, holy shit, Tony Gertz. So I pick up the phone. I know I said something stupid like, Tony, you're the rock star of the POA or rock star of the Prowler. So nice to talk to you. But what a nice man. Very willing to help. The guy, I don't know, like he's got so much knowledge on that car. He was asking me questions like posed to the dealership, specifics, what type of diagnostic tool are you using to scan the codes on the car? What fuel pressure, what this, the guy knows the stuff on that car for sure. But such a sweet guy too, so helpful, so friendly. It was a real pleasure to talk to him. And he was the one that actually helped sort out the fuel filter. So he let me know that, a 99 Grand Caravan fuel filter with some minor modifications will work. So I know now once the car eventually gets here, I know I can get a fuel filter for it. And so that was really good. So Tony was a huge help. And then I did pose a question about shipping concerns in an open trailer on the POA as well, and got responses back immediately. And and lots of people were wishing me well, good luck getting the car across. So just a good feeling from the POA of camaraderie. Yeah, so
do you already have
a good experience.
Do you already have a company figured out that's going to ship the car?
I do. I called several, and there's one that seemed to understand the car, seemed to understand what to do. One company came back to me and said that it's low to the ground. What they could do is try to put wedges in the suspension to lift off the ground. Yeah, no, I don't think they understood what they were dealing with. No, but this one company, other companies wanted a commercial vehicle inspection done to assess condition before they shipped it. And there's lots of stipulations, and some had some weird questions, and others just said, we're not going to deal with it because it's too low. Now, on top of that, in my conversation with Tony, he did let me know that the 99 and newer engines higher horsepower, but they're interference or high compression engines. Timing belt. So Tony, when I talked to him, he said, my biggest concern with your car right now is the timing belt. Has it been changed? We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as we're concerned, it is the original timing belt. It did sit in a garage covered, but it wasn't a heated garage. So, colds, thankfully on the west coast of Newfoundland, it doesn't get very, very cold, but still, minus teens Celsius. And with the car just sitting there not being used, I know what the cold can do to rubber out of here in Alberta. Our extreme colds are a little worse. So Tony's point was valid. Now that was after the dealership had road tested the car. So my next instruction to them as we were searching for a fuel filter was that engine no longer starts unless you guys can do a timing belt, which in the end, they declined on doing, which was fine.
Mm-hmm.
So the towing or the shipping out here is going to be a little more complicated because I do not want that engine to start.
Yeah.
The timing belt is probably fine. It could be in pristine condition. You can't see it. And I've not taken the risk.
Yeah. How many miles are on the car?
I know it's in kilometers. It's 33,000 kilometers.
That's fine. I'll do a conversion later.
Okay.
No problem.
I wrote it down somewhere. I've got notes in front of me, but I wasn't quite prepared.
No, I know, but the kilometer is smaller than a mile. So
it is,
yeah. So the mileage is going to be, a smaller number than that. So that's not bad at all.
Right.
When I was looking at the photos of the car, you said your grandfather got it in 2011 is when he bought it. Does he know how many other people owned it before him, or did he know?
As far as I'm concerned, the car's history starts in 2011 with my grandfather. But I do know that he picked it up on the East Coast. St. John's is the capital of the province. So that's where he got it. Okay. Apparently, that dealership got it shipped from Nova Scotia. And apparently, that dealership got it up from Florida. But for me, this car started for me in 2011 when my grandfather owned it.
Okay.
That's
the only reason. The history is always a good thing to have, just because you don't know what the previous owners did. Now, because looking at the photos, the car looks stock with just one exception.
It is.
The front tires look like they're different.
Yes, the tires were replaced. So
the rear tires look to be rears look to be original. The tread on the back looks to be the original tire.
All four tires were replaced. So when grandfather got the car in 2011 in St. John's, it got shipped to the Chrysler dealership where we ended up towing it to last year to get the maintenance inspection done.
Okay.
They had it there. They replaced all four tires.
Okay.
I think they're BF Goodrich tires in the front and back.
Well, if they're Goodrich, if BF Good, okay, because the original tires on the car were Goodyear.
Right.
You said they were all replaced, but even so. Unless you can see the markings on the sidewall to be able to determine really how old those tires are to determine. But if the ones in the back are not run flat, then they're not the original Goodyears. They just somehow have the same tread pattern for the most part on it. So I couldn't read the sidewall to tell if it was Goodyear or what. It's just one of those things, like anything rubber in the car. I'm not sure how you feel about it, but if you don't really know how old the tires are, again, you should be able to figure it out based on the markings on the side of the tire. You can determine the manufacturer date of the tire. If it was me, I would just kind of feel like I'd rather start over, even if the mileage isn't that bad. It's one of those things where it's a safety thing that makes me feel better when I wanted to get mine changed out, even though mine had 370 miles when I bought it. That didn't matter. I was worried about how well the car would, and the run flats were just so hard to ride in anyway. So but it's just one of those things you probably want to consider.
No, sure, it'll be on the wish list, but I've got bigger things to maybe address before I get
I know.
tires.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. So you're obviously the fuel pump and the filter, working on that, and the timing belt. Was there anything else that you know of that they, based on any inspections they did, they think might be a problem with the car?
No, there wasn't. I was concerned about seals leaking. So when they said that part of the inspection they could do is a road test, I was happy with that. That'd be good, because I'd like to know if there's any oil seals, engine, transmission, any seals leaking at all. The wheel bearings, I assume there's wheel bearings in the front. Are they clunking and squealing? Any weird sounds when you're making turns? Service manager said, apart from just the engine faults and the engine being sluggish at the beginning, everything else was fine.
Okay.
So as far as I'm concerned, it should be good, except for what I know about. So when the car gets here, for sure the fuel filter's got to be changed. They say they cleaned the tank just by going in through opening after the fuel pump was removed. I don't know how thorough, right? I kind of talked to the service manager, but I'm kind of anticipating I might go back into the tank again and just have a good look. Fuel lines need to be flushed out. Fuel injectors I'm probably going to replace. I'm in my mind, I can see that the sludge, the contamination worked its way up. On the road test, when he said it picked up after the fuel started to work through, that tells me that stuff maybe got into the fuel injectors. And then the fuel rail, I'll pull off, flush that thing out. So lines, fuel rail injectors, and timing belt for sure, spark plugs, and then we'll see what happens next.
Okay. So your grandfather got it in 2011. How much did he drive it before he was unable to again?
Pretty much nothing. So went back into his garage, got parked. I assume he drove it from the dealership back to his own garage. We don't know. We weren't there with him. And my parents live, like I say, on the East Coast. He's on the West Coast. We can't ask him now, unfortunately. But very little to nothing. I know on a visit shortly after he purchased the car, it may have been the next year that we went back on family vacation. That's when we went out in the garage, we pulled the cover off, and I was just in awe of that car again. It hadn't moved. And the one I referred to when he said that, he thought maybe one of his kids would take the car. I asked him if he planned to drive it. He said, no, I didn't plan to drive it. So he was 80 when he got the car. So I don't know if he would have driven it though, Pat, to be honest. He loved the car, but he was happy just to have it. I don't know if it was actually his dream car. I know he loved the car. I don't know if it was truly his dream car, but for him, I knew it was a special car to him. But before purchasing it, Pat, I don't know.
Okay. Now, you obviously really liked the car when you saw it. Did you have an interest in the Prowler before you ever saw it?
So I'll be brutally honest. I'm not a hardcore car guy. I love cars. I love driving cars. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love automobiles, but I can't distinguish for a lot of vintage cars, model year to model year. But I'm not hardcore into it. So I was aware of the Prowler before I actually saw one. I think I'd seen maybe the cover of a magazine or something like that. And I thought, wow, it's a cool looking car. It's different. But in 1998, I was making a deal on a Dodge Ram, so a pickup truck. And in the showroom, they had a purple Prowler and trailer. Pretty sure it was a 99. I don't think it was a 97. I think it was a 99. But once I saw it in person, it was a real game changer, my attitude on that car. I just looked at that thing and I was absolutely awestruck. It just spoke to me. It was all, if I could have, in my mind, designed a car that was perfect for me, it probably wouldn't get any better than that one. Everything about that car I absolutely love. So up until then, I know I told you before, there was a red Corvette Stingray in 1976 with T-top roof. And I still think that's a pretty sexy car. But for me now, it pales in comparison to that Prowler. So when I saw the showroom in Calgary where I picked up the truck, I said, that's the car that eventually I'm going to have a midlife crisis car, or it's my dream car for sure. Just love it, everything about it. I kind of puzzled you a bit when I talked about the front bumpers. I mean, the car looks awesome with the bumpers off. It definitely does. So I don't want to, belittle customizations people are doing. I've seen some customized car that looks super sharp. But for me, I love the front bumpers on that car. It adds to the look. And I said, I don't know why I love these front bumpers so much. I said, it looks like they don't belong, but to me, they absolutely do. There's just something about those bumpers that I just love these freaking things.
Okay. Yeah.
So
you are honestly the first person I've ever spoken with that actually likes them that much. Everybody else that has the bumpers on, including myself, accept them as they are. Honestly, I think they're kind of funny looking, but
they are.
But I'm okay with it because they're safety.
Yeah.
They're there for a safety reason. They're there for a purpose.
Yes, absolutely.
But that's why a lot of people take them off because they think they're ugly. They look like they're just tacked on, and they are. They really were not. The car was not shaped really to have a bumper at all. So, but they had it.
They were necessary evil for Chrysler for Plymouth in their design. Absolutely.
But I always liked them just because the first die-cast model I ever got of the car back in '99 or 2000, whenever I got it, is. You had the bumpers on there. That's the car I fell in love with, so I'm cool with it. It's part of its history to me.
So I am an on again, off again Formula One racing fan. Once I fall in love with the sport, I am hardcore addicted. No matter what the time zone, what area of the country they're racing in, or area of Europe they're racing in, I stay up to watch it live. So I just had an aha moment where I've got a die-cast model of a racer that I was rooting for in the late 90s, Canadian guy, Jacques Villeneuve. So I've got his championship-winning car on display in my office. And I just happened to look at it, and I looked at the front wing on the car. I said, that's it. That's what the bumper puts me in mind of. The way it crosses across the front of the tires, side to side, the way it's just kind of hanging there.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that front bumper puts me in mind of a Formula One race car. And maybe that's why I love the bumpers not so much, you know. And an F1 race car, they're big hangy things dangling off the front, and they look kind of funny too, but they just work. They just belong. So for me, with that car, that front bumper, for me, that front bumper has to stay. It belongs on that car. And I think it looks awesome on that car. Yeah.
Okay.
Plus, that's how grandfather loved the car. And I do definitely keep in mind, even though now, yes, the car is mine, it's still grandfather's. And he loved the car that way. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that he loved the car that way. The car stays that way. There'll be no customizations.
I think that's a great way to do it.
There was one story one article I read, and I don't remember what site, but the guy goes into detail about, I think it was a journalist who maybe Chrysler gave a chance to drive one around for PR, maybe. Mm-hmm. Not too sure. But anyway, so he recounts the tale of where he was driving, warm summer evening, the top was down. He was stopped at a stoplight, and there was a steakhouse at that intersection. And he said the combination of the beautiful summer evening, the smell of steak, and then the note from the exhaust when the light turned green, he pulled away. It was just magical. So in Red Deer, there is in fact an intersection that has a Keg Steakhouse on one side of the street and a Mr. Mike Steakhouse on the other side. So I plan to absolutely do that. I'm going to drive that intersection until I hit the red light on a warm summer evening, and I'll experience it. That sounds so good to me. Just to pull away, hear the exhaust rumble, and smell of steak in the air. That's something that appeals to me. So I'm going to duplicate that for sure. It's the same article, or maybe other ones I read. They talked about the firm ride. They talked about the shake. They talked about ruts in the road can rip the steering wheel out of your hand. They talked about top down, the violent wind that you get in the cockpit or in the cab. They talked, one guy said the passenger will love to drive with you once and they will never want to get in that car again. And the more I read that, the more I loved the car. I said, this thing is actually mean. So I can't wait. It's like, almost like it's a wild stallion you're trying to ride or something. So I'm just so excited to experience. Just throw a compliment to you for the videos. I watched all your videos, lots of good information. And for a guy like myself who's getting into this for the first time, it's a valuable resource.
Thank you.
I went through all your videos, and the people that were gracious enough to come on there and offer up their experiences, issues, fixes, I want to thank them too. Thank Tony as well. I was amazed he called me the same day I applied to be a member. Huge help. And then Pat, thank you for giving me a chance to, talk about the car, but for me, more importantly, kind of talking about my grandparents.
It's going to be, I hope when you get a chance to finally drive the car, sit in the car, that it's a magical moment for you. Make sure you take some photos, do some video, have somebody record you while you're doing it.
Yeah, I'll share with you because you're so good to share your experiences. I want to share with you too.
Well, thank you, Cory. I really appreciate the time. Yeah. And
thank you,
hopefully we get to see each other in person someday.
At the very least, you can brag about your beautiful yellow Prowler to me, and I'd be more than happy to ooh and ah over your car too. So absolutely, I'd love to meet you in person someday.
Okay. Hey, all right. Well, thank you, Cory. We'll talk to you later. Thanks.
All right. Take care, Pat.
Okay, bye.
Bye.